So it's been a minute, guys. Um, so I'll address where I've been at the end of the video. But for now, I want to talk about um, Your Name, right? I watched it last night. It was kind of crazy. I watched it from like 1 o'clock to like 3, I think 1:30 to like 3:30, something like that. But yeah, so I watched Your Name and I really liked it, and I'll be eating this right as we do this. It's like this is genius, by the way. Like I don't know how you like this is genius. We can talk about this another day, okay? But basically, I watched Your Name last night, and I wanted to talk about it because I felt like if I didn't talk about it, I would forget about it, and that's very thematically convenient, I guess would be the word, right? Because because Your Name is about two people forgetting each other's names, right? And they don't want to forget that. So I thought it was pretty interesting. Right. So it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, right? But so Your Name, right? What about it? Why do I like it so much? Um, First of all, I went into it watching it as a research project esque thing, right? Because I wanted to write my college essay in a four-part structure, right? Like in Japanese, it's called like Kishotenketsu, I think. Which is basically instead of like how we have it traditionally in the West, which is like an opening, a rising actions, inciting incident, climax, falling action, or whatever it's called, conclusion, right? It goes opening, development of that opening, a twist, and a knot, right? Um, so yeah, I had trouble writing my conflict, because I felt it was like disingenuous. So I was like, okay, let's try something else, right? And somewhere on the internet I came across a video of this thing called Kishotenketsu, and I was like, okay, let's try that, right? But I need to do research on it. I actually came on this idea originally because I watched Spirited Away, off on a whim, right? Because I was like, wait, I never watched this. And I was like procrastinating homework or something, and so I was like, okay, let's watch Spirited Away, right? And I was like, wait, the way they wrote this story is very interesting, right? So I did more research into it, and then I got a recommendation to watch Your Name, okay? So thank God I didn't spoil this for myself because it's brilliant, okay? I think I liked it more than Spirited Away for different reasons, but we'll get to that, right? So I guess let's go over a plot synopsis, right? And this video will be unedited because I can't be bothered and I'm really busy right now, right? Which is also a reason why I've been gone from YouTube, but we can talk about that later, right? For now, plot synopsis. So I'll break it down how I understood it because again, this is also it was like a thing for my college essay, right? So we have the key, okay? So that's the opening. So it opens and introduces um Mitsuha and introduces I forgot the dude's name. So I can't like Japanese names. It's very hard for me to remember. And if you say like, it's racist, okay, bro. I don't remember Chinese names either. Okay, it's very hard. But okay. So you have Mitsuha, and we introduce to her and her life as like a shrine maiden. I think is what she is in this rural town of Itori. I think it's called Itori. So she is living this rural life, and she wishes to go to Tokyo, right? So yeah, so she goes to Tokyo, and well, not yet. But we'll get there later. And then we switch to a guy, and she wakes up in a guy's body. I think is how it goes. But basically, I don't remember the exact details, but I've been thinking about this movie like the whole night and like last night and today. By the way, I thought it was such a brilliant movie. Spoiler alert, I guess. But okay, so we're introduced to this guy, and we're introduced to his life, right, in Tokyo, and we're introduced to this body switching gimmick, right, and the film introduces itself as just that, right, a tale about two people switching bodies, right, and it starts off very cute, and it's entertaining, right? And from there it develops, right? Bro, I had a fucking like thing. I had like a DeepSeek tab opened up. Let me reference that. Because I wanted to like fully like understand what it. Okay, yeah. So development is they start. Oh yeah. Okay. So development is they can swap bodies and they will do it and they figured out that they swap bodies with each other and yeah. So they do that and it develops, right? Mitsuha sets up the dude with a girlfriend, and the dude pops off in Mitsuha's school and gets her like street cred, right? And that's basically that. Okay, so so that goes into that, and then basically the climax, if you want to call it that, or I guess the beginning of the midpoint of the story. Okay, is I think what it is in both this structure and traditional um, Western structures. But the midpoint of the story is when we go from corner one to corner two, right? Like that flip. Um, he goes on this date with this girl, okay, that he really likes, and she tells him that she realizes that he has his heart for another woman, right? And and he realizes that's Mitsuha, right? And he tries to call her, and she won't pick up, okay? So then let me reference the DeepSeek AI. And then, and yeah, and he realizes that he actually likes this girl, and that's where the story switches. Okay, so then, so he decides he can't call her. So then he wants to go search, but then the streams stop, right? And that I think that could be also considered a midpoint of the story. It could be bimodal, right? Two midpoints, something like that in AP statistics. But but yeah, so the switches stop, and all of a sudden, right after this event, and after she sees the meteor shower, right, so you're like, oh, what happened, right? And she goes to Itomori, right, and um, and he realizes right after a bit of searching or whatever that Itomori got caved in by an asteroid 3 years ago, right? So this is like the twist, right? This is where it like hits you after you spent like an hour getting to know these characters and I think that's the best thing. That's the benefit. That's the advantage of a story structure like this, right? It instead of the traditional way we do it in the West, where you have that switch, right? And it's like fighting instead of that switch, it's fighting the big guy, right? Um, and like it's like in the traditionally, I think Hercules is the best example of this. Um, the climax, I guess, the midpoint of the story is when I should remember Hercules, but like you know how there's always an enemy to face, right? Hades is the enemy in Hercules. Um, I can't think of anything else right now. I'm blanking. But you see what I'm talking about, right? That also is called like the hero's journey. That's another narrative archetype. But basically, you spend an hour getting to know these characters, and then you realize that he hasn't been switching bodies. He's been traveling through time, right? And then somewhere along the line, he realizes that, like the thing that he's been wearing on his wrist, it's like it was like a lucky charm or some shit. He got that from Mitsuha 3 years ago, right? In the intro of the movie, which I think is brilliant. It really gives me like what do you call it, Tarantino vibes. Or not, I guess not necessarily Tarantino, but like Pulp Fiction kind of, right? Um, he gets, or I guess it's just foreshadowing, but it's really clever foreshadowing. But he gets the bracelet from her in the beginning of the movie, and he doesn't know her yet, right? Because that was 3 years ago, and he was still in probably like he was in like sixth grade or something. Okay, because he's in like high school, 5 years from high school, so he's probably in either his like second or third year of high school. They do only 3 years of high school in Japan, which makes him means he's in like a second or third year of middle school. So he's either like a freshman or an eighth grader. Okay, when he first meets her, so she's like 3 years older than him or whatever, and she this was the day before the Ashford thing. So she meets him and she realizes that he doesn't know her yet, right? Which she finds very confusing. But then she gives him the thing, right? And then he realizes that Itomori is destroyed, and then after on a last ditch effort, he decides to drink um, the the kamisake. I think is what it's called. It's like a sake made out of chewed rice, right? Um, that she made because she's like a shrine maiden or whatever, right? As an offering to the gods, and then this transports him back to time in time to Mitsuo's body on the day of, right? And then we learn that this body switching thing is like a trait of like the Mitsuha lineage, right? And um and yeah, so but they always end up forgetting, right? So then so that she sets off. This is so we're now past the twist, right? The twist ends at the realization. The twist doesn't even be long, right? That's what I noticed, learned from this. The twist ends at the realization that it's time that's switching, not themselves, right? Like, dude, that moment when you realize that that Inomori was destroyed 3 years ago, dude, like that's some crazy shit, right? Like that, dude. I was watching this at like it was like 2:30 in the morning by that point, and I was still like I was locked in, right? So good job to them, right? Whoever wrote this. But then yeah, so then she goes back in time, and then they do a bunch of shenanigans, and then they. So this is also more foreshadowing. Eventually they merge the timelines at like this like the time between sunset and between like the time like it's called half light or something. Okay, I think that's what they translated it to. So then that's like they foreshadowed this too, which is really clever. But then that's when the two like worlds connect or something, and then they finally meet each other and decide to write each other's names in their hands, but they don't get it done in time. And then this fucking dumbass, instead of writing his name on her hand, he writes "I love you." Okay, like what the fuck? She's gonna forget your name, okay? And he forgets hers. So then this sets up the end, right? Where sadly, we know that they both forget each other's names, but Mitsuko manages to save everybody. We go back, we only figure this out 5 years into the future when he's graduated from college and he forgot all about this. And the only thing he knows is 5 years ago he had a very strange obsession with, with the Itomori incident, right? And then, what's her name? Mitsuko also forgets everything about that. And at the very end, they see each other on the train, naturally remember each other, and reunite, right? And wow, that ending had me like fucked up. I didn't cry, but yeah, that was very good. It was very well written. So now you have the general plot synopsis. What did I like and what did I not like about it? Okay, so first of all, I thought the foreshadowing, the writing, the structure, it's brilliant, right? There's a reason why people cite this as a reason for as the prime example of Kishotenketsu, right? Because it is, right? It's narrative structure. It's a narrative. It's a story. It's a very structured story, right? Many writers will go out of their way to not adhere to or to break apart from a structure, right? Um, and in a lot of ways, I do too, right? I never wrote in a three act structure because I didn't like it, right? I didn't necessarily write in a four act structure. I just wrote the way I wanted to write, right? Which usually it's similar but different, right, to this. Because you need that twist, right? You need something. You can't just have it rise and never fall. You need to have something for it to fall. And I guess I did. It was an ultimately three part structure, but I don't know. It was amazing, I think. But anyways, what I liked about this and what I learned. Okay, so I guess we can call this title of this video. Your name is perfect. Parentheses. An analysis of Kishotenketsu. I'll probably call it that. But or like analysis of Kishotenketsu. But anyways, I thought it's a fundamental story, right? It's a story based in fundamentals, and it's done perfectly, right? A lot of anime just follow this general structure. That's why anime characters sell, right? Because people care about them. Because half the story, more than half the story, is just spent on development, right? And I think that's what's like amazing about I guess the structure. Um, you don't need an antagonist or a traditional conflict. You just you let this. It could be boring, right? And I think we sometimes see it as such. It drags on, but if it's done well, you don't think about it, right? I think that's like there's a lot of anime that it drags and drags and drags and drags and drags, right? Um, like you can look at Naruto for example, right? It's like sometimes they set up plot lines so fucking long that you just stop fucking caring about them, right? Like um, I'm blanking again, but you see what I'm saying, right? Like to some extent, um, it's just done so perfectly. You start to care so much about both Mitsuha and this guy from just a snapshot into their lives, right? And even though it's only a movie, so you don't really know ultimately too much about them, you care a lot about them, right? And by the time they realize that she's dead and that they will never, and you get the idea that they will never be able to actually meet each other, right? Especially because they both have fell for each other. You realize you get really fucked up, right? It really fucks you up, and that's amazing, right? Like a traditional climax, right, is epic. It's grandiose, and you're sticking it to the big guy, right? It's supposed to be cool, right? A tradition this is supposed to be tragic, right? And I guess the climax in Shakespeare or Romeo and Juliet, right? Very, very famous tragedy. It is tragic, right? Um, because I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm sure you know it, but I don't want to spoil it. But like the point is that it's done so well, right? You don't need an antagonist. They're not fighting against anybody, right? Um, it things are just the way it is, and you make the best of it, right? And I think that's also a cultural difference between, I guess Americans and Japanese people, right? I guess I don't know. This might sound racist, but I think it's ultimately factual. I think Japanese people do have a conformist society, right? So you don't really stick up to the big guys, while in America it's all about like going the distance and sticking it to the big guy, right? There's a reason why Rocky fucking Balboa is an American icon, right? The Italian stallion. But like the point I'm trying to make is that um, like you don't like it doesn't need a climax to pay off so well, right? Which I thought was fascinating, and like I really started to care for the characters, and I really wanted them to do whatever, right? And I think that's really impressive. Also, the fucking it's beautifully animated. Okay? I realized that in the first like 15 minutes, I was like, damn, like I really don't want to fall in love with a movie because I really hate when I fall in love with a movie, right? Because when I finish the movie, instead of shitting on it and laughing, I'm like, damn, it makes me it makes me feeling like empty, right? That I finished it, which like I would rather just shit on a movie like fucking what's that one movie, that I reviewed like a little while ago, like shit. Oh, fucking my Oxford year, like that shit was trash. Okay, I'll tell you full stop, right? And I didn't really care, right, when I finished that movie. That I just shit on it, right? And I didn't feel like I was missing anything, but like I saw 15 minutes into the movie, I was like, damn, this shit is like really pretty, right? I was like, I really don't want to actually like end up loving the movie, especially because also I think I'm a hypocrite because I've critiqued Japanese medium for a long time, right? And fundamentally, a lot of Japanese manga and anime are written in a four-part structure, right? So how can I sit here complimenting a four-part structure when I've shit on them for being boring and uneventful for so long? But that's because it's not boring and uneventful, right? Because we are always learning a little bit more about the characters, and it's interesting, right? And there is technically a conflict to it, right? The conflict is that they're trying to figure out, or a mystery to it, right? They're trying to figure out why their bodies are switching, and they're slowly working through this, right? And I guess this body switching in and of itself is like such a wrench in the plans that you can classify as a conflict, which is what I thought initially, right? I thought the movie was just about body switching, right? And then they throw this complete mind fuckery in there that's this time switching thing, and it's brilliant, right? And you don't realize it, but like by that the midpoint of the movie, right? You really like fuck like you really are into these characters, right? Sorry, give me a second. So sorry. So you really get into these characters, right? And you really start caring about them. So then when they finally do that the twist, right? And you realize she's dead, it really hits you, right? And you really want them, and because you also do realize that they do end up starting liking each other, right? Um, and you really do want them to be together, and it doesn't happen, right? And I think that's also part of the beauty of Japanese. And also, I guess this story structure is really prevalent, and also one of my favorite movies of all time, Before Sunrise, right? Um, but we can talk about that another. I've talked about that another day, right? But like it's just this idea that like something doesn't always have to end with that traditional Hollywood ending of the hero gets the heroine, right? Or the princess in the castle, right? Or the mistress or whatever, right? Um, like it's this, it's tragic, right? Because you realize that as it is now, they will never be together, right? And I guess in some way, the story is also him sticking it to the big guy, but like not really, right? Like he does everything in his power to change to change history, right? And he does. He saves Foundry people, right? And you can argue that Foundry people is more important um than me and this girl, right? And and yeah, that's fair, right? He forgets this girl to save Foundry people ultimately, right? And I think it's a fair sacrifice, right? But it's tragic, right? And he also never will know that it was him that saved Foundry people, and she will also never know it's him too, right? Um, but yeah, and so they go through with it. They save the town, and then um, yeah. So she moves to Tokyo in 5 years' time. He graduates university. He's looking for a job, and then one day, we realized the other girl that was married, but cool, whatever, right? And then one day on the train, they meet each other, and then just as the movie's about to cut, um, they they greet each other, right? And they ask if they are familiar to each other. And probably the only thing they remember from each other is that she was the one that gave him the bracelet 5 years ago. But and you also don't know how the story's gonna end, right? If they do end up remembering everything that they went through together, and that's I guess that's the tragedy and the brilliance of it, right? And also that's the beauty of the four act structure, right? I guess a lot of Japanese media doesn't end on this Hollywood happily ever after, right? Um, it's realistic. It's tragic, right? And I think that's what I can take away from this, right? That it doesn't have to end in a happily ever after. It just happen. It has to tie back the ending to the conclusion, which I want to do, right? I want to end it on the 5149 and leave it on a bittersweet note, right? Because nothing in life truly is random, right? And you're always responsible for your own actions. But at the end of the day, like it never really was about I guess the coin flip. It was always about winning responsibility, and but it was never actually 50-50, right? But but yeah, that's the idea of the 5149, and that's how I connect it back to my college essay. But back to this, I think the movie is just so brilliant because it makes you care, right? And it's hard to make me care, especially in a medium like anime, because ultimately I think a lot of them are poorly written, right? And I think that's due to being an episodic format, right? And and I think that's what movies do, right? And that's why I like movies, right? But but yeah, I feel like I've been thinking about this all day, and And I think it's just so like beautifully written, right? It's perfect. There's not a single moment. It's literally perfectly written, right? There's for the structure that's going with. There's not a single moment that is wasted, right? Which is probably primarily the complaint with a structure like this, that nothing happens, right? It's a nothing happens, no conflict story. But ultimately, the conflict is a personal conflict, and it doesn't need to be saving the world, right? It can be as much as as trying to save the girl you love, right? Even though she won't remember you, right? And also, like, why the fuck would you write "I love you" on her hands? That's so fucking stupid, right? Like, clown ass motherfucker. Also, I don't get why they never told any of their friends the name of the other person, because that would also have solved a lot of problems. Um, that's a plot hole. But also, it would not have been as dramatic, right? So, I mean, I guess in the heat of the moment, I guess, yeah. Also, it's really convenient that they wrote everything over like their phones and not on paper or anything. I don't know. I mean, it's also implied that they've been searching bodies for a while now, prior to the beginning of the movie. So I guess there's that. It's not like it just started happening, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, what I really loved about the movie was that like there's not a there's not a second in it that's wasted, right? Every second of it, from the introduction to the development, is making you care for these characters. So when that twist hits, it just hits you so hard. It's like a gut punch, right? It really is. And then it wraps up in a very bittersweet Japanese way, right? And the story is, it's not only structurally perfect, right? Also, I'm procrastinating homework to make this fucking video, by the way. It's not only structurally perfect, it's a group project too. It's not only structurally perfect, but it's it's also full of like heart, right? Like you can tell the writers really like cared, right? And every character seems thought out, and and all makes sense, right? And yeah, like the way that they establish that new normal, right? Is that's the beauty of Kishotenketsu, right? It introduces you to the story, right? Something you have to do, right? Even the three-part structure as an introduction, right? And instead of going immediately into a rising action, introducing the conflict, the villain, and going up from there, right? It establishes a normal, right? It doesn't establish something to it doesn't establish the I don't remember his name from Rocky. Apollo Creed, right? It doesn't establish the Apollo Creed. It establishes the normal, right? And the story isn't about overcoming Apollo Creed. The story is just a snapshot into their lives, and that makes it so much more personal, right? So when they rip it out of your hands, right, and that twist, right, that uh, 10 um, or the Chinese name is Zhuan, I think, like turn, right? Um, and that twist, it really just really like fucks you up, right? And and then it goes from there, right? It resolves the issue in a believable way. It has a thematic premise that it talks about. It talks about um, like how people can be tied through space time, right? Through the smallest things, and um, and it's it's a change and also the goal, right? Like that's the beauty of the 10. It's not just a change in the norm, it's also a change in what they're going up against, right? It's not the conflict prior, because it still has to have a conflict, right? It can't just be nothing. The conflict is that they're switching bodies, right? The conflict in traditional romance story is that either like before sunrise they know that they only have until sunrise, or in traditional conflict they it's like a um, it's like a she likes him, he likes her, but like whatever, right? But it's trying to figure out this phenomenon, right? Why are they switching bodies? And it switches to it doesn't matter why we're switching bodies, and it stops switching bodies. I need to save this girl and her village, right? And it goes from that, and it ties it all together. back to the beginning, right? Which is the ketsu. It's a knot, right? Think about a knot. You tie the beginning and the end, right? It ties the beginning to the end, with the whole train scene with the bracelet, right? And then, but the story has established that, like as the grandma said, right, earlier, that they always, her family always forgets these memories, right? But I guess the emotional way still sticks with them, right? And she says she still misses, that guy, right, that her grandma was searching with, right? And um, and it ties together all the thematic plot lines, and it ties together all the foreshadowing, and it wraps it all up in a nice little bow. And even though I did spoil the whole movie for you, if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you do. I couldn't do it enough justice. Um, because ultimately it's like if you spoil a plot, a three act structure for somebody, it ruins it for them, right? Because you can see, and that's what all the critics always say, right? Oh, I saw the climax, I saw the resolution, I saw the whatever, right? But even if you do know the twist, it's the characters that make a Kishotenketsu story work, right? And that's why Japan sells so much merch, right? And that's why I think I want to try this story structure for my college essay, because ultimately I'm trying to sell myself, right? To UPenn, to Mish, to MIT, to whatever, right? And um, so I think my key is gonna be, like, so let's walk through my college essay. So my key is going to be, myself in Carter's, and staring up this tower of stuffed animals, right? And I really struggled with the decision between I pick a giraffe or an elephant. And then ultimately we bought both, and because we are gonna give one to my sister, right? And then ultimately she decided for me, right? And then I'm gonna introduce the idea that, even though I didn't have to make the decision, uh, my reaction to her decision, right, the outcome, was disappointment, right? Because at the same time, while I did really want the giraffe or the elephant, I also really wanted the giraffe, and she chose the giraffe, right? So maybe that tells me something, and I should have chose earlier, right? But I got stuck with the elephant, and I loved it, right? I still love the elephant. It's gone now. It's been gone for a few years now. But that the elephant was mine, right? And then we go into um the the show, which, so that's the introduction, right, to me, and we have to establish that norm, right? And then I'll talk about the 50-50, how it's almost like flipping a coin, and how it's comfortable because you can never be blamed for the outcome of a a decision, um, and that, I did a lot of things, right? Wendy's and McDonald's, Pokemon, Sun and Moon, right? Yeah, I'm sure I can think of a lot of other things. Also, look, guys, look what I've been up to. Isn't this cool? I made this guy, entry grade RX-78 2. I have, like I have like all the parts of the H guac on my desk, right? I have all the parts. I just haven't put them together yet because I was like panel lining, and I also have Gundam Ifrit. This is the arm of it. Lifrith, I think is what it's called. I don't know what it's called. The pink one, and I have everything but the light gun. But anyways, I really like Gundam. I think it's really fun. Oh. So yeah, that's my show, and then should I talk about making YouTube videos for my MIT supplemental? That'd be crazy. Um, so for my lighting's like really weird here. So for my show, I'll talk about that, right? Establish that norm of not being able to decide things and deciding things on a coin flip, right? And then for my 10, this is the hard one, right? I don't know how to change the norm. Maybe a time, like 10 is still what I'm deciding on, right? I was thinking about eating like crickets and shit in China. Um, Because also I think that talks about like my cultural heritage, right? Colleges dig that shit. And it also talks about a time in my life where I took a chance, right? Or I can talk about walking up a downward escalator, tie it back to, I can go to like, talk about my love for philosophy, um, and I can talk about how I guess denied or defied the, um, like, I took a stupid risk, right? And I'm all about making informed decisions, right? Calculated decisions, and I can never make a decision, right, until I'm presented with all the numbers, right? Which I guess can tie back to whatever example I choose. Before that, probably the Pokemon example would be the better. But I'm sure there are other ones I can think of. But I've always been the type of guy, right? Like I'll always like meticulously scour the reviews of something before I buy it, right? But I'll go back to that. I'll talk about tie it back to that. Uh, it has to be a twist, right? A change from the norm. So I guess I can literally be in a new environment, right? China, and I can try new things, right? And I can, yeah. I'm talking about the time I ate a cricket, right? So I'm just gonna look directionless, right? I still am liking a midpoint in the story where the story really turns, right? I think that midpoint could be, I don't know. It could be just me being in China, a very drastic cultural shock, despite the fact that I'm Chinese. That could work actually. It's a change from the norm. It um, it serves as a midpoint in the story where it goes away from McDonald's or Wendy's and it goes into all this like I guess overcoming. I don't know what I guess exactly. I guess taking chances, right? It should be very sharp. It's a very sharp turn. I think very a lot more sharp than what's characteristic for traditional Kishotenketsu. It's such a long fucking name, bro. I think the Chinese name is it's Qi, or like Qi, like Qi Chuang, and then Qi, and then I think is it nine? I don't know what the show would be, but I know the 10 is Chuan, like turn, and then the Ketsu is it's the word for not. I don't remember what it's called. Forgot the word. But oh yeah, 节，起承转节，转节, I think 转节. But that's also very much more like I guess literal translation of it. I don't know what Kisho or Ketsu mean. I'm not Japanese, but yeah. I know my Ketsu will be talking about 5149 and how I only have 650 words for this too, but how it was never about it was never about the coin flip. It was all about it was always about not being able to take chances, right? I can talk about, and I guess the China example will show in itself, right? I didn't really have I can end the essay. I'm like, and China doesn't use coins because they don't. Everything's online, right? All their currency's online. I can talk about how um I want to talk about how I made those decisions because I don't know, because there's some things in life where I guess where you don't know that you'll regret something until you do it, so you might as well do it. And yeah, so I think that was a pretty good outline for my college essay. Um, yeah, that's that. My voice is getting really cooked, but you should really watch um, you should really watch Your Name. It was a brilliant movie. Um, I don't want to say don't want to say 10 out of 10. Like I don't I didn't notice any flaws with it other than like the boob shit. Like that shit was weird, but like it's Japan, right? Um, I don't know. I didn't know any flaws with it, right? Like in all regards, except for the dude writing his fucking "I love you" and stuff. Like what the fuck? It was a perfect story. So yeah, highly recommend. And and yeah, where have I been? Check the other channel. I want to talk about that. And bye guys. I'll see you.